Hi, and welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Eric, joined by Bevan. We're bringing you um, number 96, The Movie. Ooh, from 1974, right?
Yes, the movie.
He's got the movie ready. I like
I
it.
do.
Tell me all the credits and we'll get into it. This movie, I wish I would have watched it about 5 times because I didn't know. I was messaging you, I think, during it, and I was like, "What the hell is happening? Who are these people?" Because like I wasn't used to seeing them in color, so,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah, I
didn't.
was like, I
Some
know
of
that's Flo and that's Claire.
the only one like I knew was Dory because she has like the same voice, and I was
Yeah,
just. But the other
yeah.
ones, it took me a minute, and plus, like, also, remember, I'm watching where if I seen everything in order, then I probably would have known, like, but with like the broken up bits at the end, that was hard for me to like know what was happening, and like I was so confused a lot.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a bit like that. Just because of like the way the early parts, in particularly, sort of the way, well, the stuff that's available of the early parts. Something that I don't know if well, was on my DVD anyway, is a little like disclaimer before the film starts that sort of says that the release was pieced together from archived and found footage. So like by the sounds of it, a complete version didn't exist until they made the DVD release, or at least
Oh wow.
wasn't in circulation. Was I'm assuming by that. So very scratchy.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, how about we talk about it like via like storyline wise.
Okay, so
So we'll
despite the
so we'll
you,
we'll start with Vera.
yes,
Do you know any facts about the movie beforehand? I didn't look anything up because
um, I
I was
know
gonna
that
let
like
you run this.
oh no, there wasn't. It was just in like because it was so popular at the time and stuff like that. It was an option for them to sort of show like things that they couldn't on TV, so they could be more racy. There's more nudity, and even though it's not like full on, they swear and it's heard and stuff like that. That they say shit, you hear shit. A couple of them outside of like the usual bastard is always perfectly acceptable, but as we see in the movie, sort of Maggie goes on a bit of a nasty rant against a character. So yeah.
Maggie was hardly on, and then there was a few people that were hardly on. I didn't even know Alf was there until like the credits. I was like, I don't like, I don't know. Lucy and Alf were like not on that much.
No, no. So
Um,
it was like very ensemble-y, and they sort of had like I think they wanted to probably stick to characters because quite a few of the characters um were their stories were they resolve within the movie, really. You know what I mean? So like
yeah.
I think otherwise a lot of the main characters kind of were just kind of being their atypical comedy roles, like Dudley, who we didn't see, I don't think, in the last episode, but is in this movie, and would be end up being a romance for one of the other a romantic interest for one of the other characters throughout the show. He's here constantly quoting movies and talking about them. He's like, "Oh, it reminds me of Cleopatra. Did you ever see it?" And Les is like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, it was ever so good." And
Right.
like, they're very like Les is the whole thing with Les through his this movie is his typical thing of always like trying to find some sort of business venture or like little get rich quick scheme where and it usually ends up
Was
in like
that was that the older guy that was involved with Herb
yeah,
and
yeah.
Dory? Okay.
Well,
So,
so I will just say really quickly, Les and Norma, they sort of they live where the chemist where was it Gordon and Sonia were, that is now Norma's bar, and they've taken that over. They were introed obviously during that big chunk of missing episodes. Um, and yeah, there's a couple of characters like that. Like Jack Sellers obviously made an appearance in a prior one, but we see more of him as a bit more of a character in the movie, yada yada yada. But yeah.
like when Sonia came back, I thought it was Helen. Because I was like, oh, and then once she said I was gone for 2 months, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's the other girl then. because
Yeah.
they don't think her name was said at that moment. And plus, like, I didn't, she looked different to me in color than she did in black and white. Is it the same
Oh, she still
actress?
had the bop. She still had that little bop going, like.
She didn't look the same to me. But
Yeah,
like
no.
again, I was used to her in black and white, and only I seen her a couple episodes. I didn't see like a ton with her, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know her
definitely.
too much.
That is why though, just like with the episode we did last week or whatever of the last six of the beginning, that's why I did take a bit of time to sort of establish Sonia's story, what happened with her and her husband, and like why she left the show and stuff, because it played a role sort of in the movie.
Yeah, so she had a
Yeah,
nervous breakdown, she said.
yeah,
So I guess so we'll start with Herb and Dory's storyline because it kind of focuses around the anniversary party that they're
yeah,
working on throwing, which was
yeah,
really kind of hilarious. But I wish I knew, like, I don't know, like a lot of times, like I don't understand like what they're saying, so I had to put like my closed captioning on so I can
yeah,
like
yeah,
read it.
yeah.
Either that they'll talk too fast or like I just don't get it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The Aussies, yeah, we do talk a bit fast. That is something we haven't kind of lost. Like,
right. So so go ahead. Start with Herb and Dory and like what happened with them.
okay, I guess like it sort of opens up with just their usual gags and stuff like that, and her and Flo are always kind of at odds with each other. They're friends, but like it's just like the same relationship it always is. Um,
It
and
looks like
we
they're
see
kind of it looks like they're kind of battling to be the better one. Like they
Yeah, well, at the
I
in
guess
the bowls club, definitely. In the bowls club, definitely. But Flo and Dory, they do care about each other. But yeah,
I
it's
guess
just a little bit of
they both yeah, like I guess since Dory was there first, so she feels like she always has to be the one up on
the
her. It seems
concierge
like
of the
from this. That's what
building.
I got. Yeah, well, go on.
But yeah, yeah, yeah. No. And so like outside of the little subplot of her and Flo competing for was it like temporary presidency of the Lawn Bowls Club while the president is away on a trip? Um,
Yeah,
she
I didn't
figures
even know
out
what
that
that
they're
was. Is that an actual sport down there? What is it? Lawn bowl?
oh, lawn bowling. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Because all I picked up was bowling, and then I'm like, and then the ball
And
broke, and she like accused her of vandalism. I was like, what is happening?
yeah, no, that is a sport. That is something that is played here.
That's so funny.
But yeah, no, like so they're always doing their competing thing. Obviously that falls in their like falls flat, yada yada yada. And Dory realizes that they're coming up for was it their Ruby anniversary, which is 40 years. And I actually found that scene hilarious where Flo is telling her, she's like, we were married on the 18th, Flo. And she's like, no, Dory, it was the 16th. And she's like, wow, I've been married for 40 years. I would know. And she's like, I don't know what to tell you, love. It's the 16th. Like,
Yeah, is
uh,
that how they found out? Was they found the
the
what was it,
marriage
the
certificate.
document?
Yeah,
Right.
so like as they're planning the Ruby the Ruby anniversary or whatever it is, or talking about it, and they start debating, they pick up the marriage certificate and they've signed in the wrong spots. So like was it Herb was the witness and the witness was the husband, who was a
That
Horace I can't remember the last name offhand.
and they so what they weren't actually married, or is that was that the
Yeah, so
situation?
they were freaking out that they weren't actually married because the document was signed incorrectly. Obviously, as it plays out and you see like Dory losing her mind and like trying to figure out what to do, and then this other potential husband comes and tries to like sleaze onto her, but he's essentially a homeless dude who, drinks methylated spirits, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's why
She,
I was
yeah,
so confused. And then like he's trying to sleep with her in her
yeah,
bed
there's like
because
all these, yeah, yeah,
it was so silly. And then like
yeah,
the way they kept like with like planning the anniversary too. It was like Dory was like with somebody, like trying to find a place for this party,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
like And then what was going on with this sauna? I was so confused with. I'm like, so they decided
Okay,
to
so
make a sauna.
Okay, so that's just the atypical. So throughout the next bunch of episodes, Les will do it a lot. He has all these little business ventures and all these little schemes where he's not like a
Okay.
bad guy, but it's always like to make extra money and like, and he's always coming out with like useless facts. He just comes out with that. He's like, "Oh, I heard the most interesting thing up at the hospital the other day," because he worked, yeah, I'm pretty sure he actually works up at the hospital. So I've got to
Oh,
check. I
okay.
think he's a nurse. I think he's a nurse, but I've got to double check.
Oh gosh,
But yeah,
that's funny.
and he's just this like bizarre, lovely character. He is quite funny, and you'll see that as his episodes go on. Like as far as sort of those auxiliary characters, like even Arnold Feather, the one that's Dory went to plan like where her version of the party. She went to like Aldo and Roma, and Roma. We finally see Roma properly instead of constantly getting her
Yes.
talked about and stuff. So I'm happy about that. I love Roma, but anyway,
Okay.
yeah,
She didn't. She didn't seem. They seemed. Her and Aldo seemed a little bit backburnered in this as well. They were on, but like didn't do too much.
yeah. It sort of was like intro plot. So like I guess I'm getting sidetracked. So
It's fine. It's fine.
no,
A
you're
lot
right. You're right.
happened in this movie. It was a
I
lot.
know, right? That's what I mean. I'm like, oh crap, it just tangents off, but I'm like, I'm getting sidetracked now. No, okay, so Dory and Herb, that all happens. They sort of end up figuring out that so they go to Don and they find out that they've literally just missigned their own copy, like that Herb and Dory have actually been married. It's just their actual personal copy that they sort of fudged it on. It's fine.
So Herb ends
And
up kicking that dude out.
yeah, like throws him down basically. And then he gets all like staunch with Dory and Flo. He's like, all right, let's get going then.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Okay, so with the
Um,
sauna, that was just
yeah,
Les being Les. That's just his get rich quick scheme. That would have been more of like the comic relief. That's kind of how you
yeah,
see,
yeah.
like, yeah, you see Norma poke through every so just like, Les, what are you doing? Like, like that's typical. Yeah.
Oh, that was Norma.
Yeah, Norma's his wife, and that is her wig. That's not her hair. We see she has a couple of different wigs, but yeah, she wears that one mainly
and
in the butt.
and didn't Lucy go in there at one point too, like in the sauna, like seeing what they were doing? I guess because
Yeah,
Alf was in
because
there.
Alf had to go to work, and they were all trying out the sauna, and I don't know the deal with it, but he used like barbecue rocks, like the barbecue coals to burn instead of the
Oh, the
actual stuff you
clothes.
would use in a sauna. And I don't really know how that machine works, but either way, it shorted out and blew it. So yeah.
Yeah, and there was like it was like smoking, and they're like, "Ah, what's going on?"
Yeah, but a lot of the movie is framed, and the comedy and a lot of the interaction is framed around like the mishaps between like this organization of this anniversary. You've got like Dory going to Aldo and Roma, who have sort of palmed it off to Arnold Feather. Arnold Feather is one of the state. He's in a lot of episodes coming. Um, he's lovely. He's like a lovely guy. They sort of poached him over from the chemist when the chemist was still there. I'm pretty sure. I think it was the chemist. I've got to double check it now. I'm gonna have to do character histories again. I thought I had
And
it
what
down
did
pat, and now I'm realizing I'm actually missing little bits and pieces.
and what did they call it? A solar bar?
The what? Beg your pardon?
What did they call the sauna? A solar bar? I was confused. I
Oh,
didn't get what they.
he had some insane rhymey name. Like it was like it was supposed to just be yeah, I can't remember the actual name, but he had it on these cards that he marked with his ink, and it was just like this rhyme of like his Les's last name and everything like that. I can't remember it offhand, sorry.
Also, in the one part, the guys were all talking about it or whatever, and something like collapsed behind them. What was that? Do you know?
Which part? Sorry, which part was this?
It was the
Like
guys were all talking together, and then like this thing behind them collapsed, like
were
whatever
they
they
still
were
building the
building.
sauna? I thought that was
I
just when
think
they were
it
building the
is that when they were building it. Okay, because I
Yeah, I
wasn't.
think
I
that was
didn't.
just when that's the only part I could really remember that was like that outside of
Okay.
just like when they're in the bars and stuff like that in the pub. I could be wrong,
So
but
that
yeah, no, I'm pretty sure
so
that was just when they were building it.
so that pretty much wraps up Herb and Dory's storyline. So I
Yeah.
guess we'll get into Vera, which I did read a little, like I did see that spoiler first. But so Vera's car breaks down in the beginning, and I really didn't know where this was going. And it looks like a bunch of motorcycle gang people come by, and it almost reminded me of that horror movie. Oh man, what was that movie? Where the girls got raped, and then like uh they came back and killed they almost like
Oh, like the
they
I
killed
Spit
her
on Your Grave
friend,
movie? Like I Spit on
something
Your
like
Grave? Is that what
that.
you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they came and they violently raped Vera in the first 2 minutes of the movie. I'm like, really? What the frick?
Yeah, no,
They love rape. They love rape. This
yeah,
these predators.
they constantly use it as a shock tactic, and like with it, like to yeah, yeah, it was full on. Like even for like how scratchy and poorly, like it starts like a horror movie, and I was actually quite like surprised myself when I first saw it. I was like, holy shit. Like
Right,
yeah, and then it
right,
doesn't seem
and
to,
it's
and then it just bounces into these bouncy credits, and I was like,
yeah. It goes
yeah,
into
like
the theme
dun,
song, and I'm like,
dun,
okay.
dun. And you're like,
And
oh, okay.
another thing this show likes to do is like just jump like Vera's the next scene. I think she's like by the pool, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, so
She
like
just
even
was
for
violently
movie,
raped. Didn't she go to the hospital? Didn't she like, didn't show like any like friends talking about it? I was like, are we supposed to
yeah,
forget the rape happened? I didn't know where it was going until later on.
and yeah, and they start talking and stuff like it. Sort of seems to just happen, like it is done for the shock value until it is used as a plot twist later. You know,
Right.
so like, what to even say? Like Vera has some wild storylines. So like, yeah, and just in
Yeah,
this
she
movie
has.
alone is some
Yeah,
pretty.
she hit. So yeah, so she gets involved with Nick somehow. Was Nick in the series before, or
No, no,
is
no.
he just for the movie?
He's
Okay.
just for the movie, yeah. Okay, so basically Vera's staying at Claire's. So the movie, through the dialogue and stuff, you get a gauge of time passing. That like it happens over like presumably like a few like a bit of I don't know if it's like weeks. I don't think it's weeks. I think it's like because you've got like Dory and Dory and Flo competing in the bowls tournament, and then you have them planning like their anniversary. So I feel like it's supposed to take place over like a month or so. At least you get the
Okay.
vibe with it, you know. But anyways, she's over at Claire's, which is Bev's rich mother, and she's sort of convalescing there and recuperating. She's staying away from everything. Like that's sort of where she's sort of gone after the assault. Um, that's when you see like Maggie walk over, and she's just sort of like, uh, when you start get your sketchbook open again, I want like 12 dresses from you, you know. And she's like, but of course, like when you're healed, sort of thing. Like there's a lot of that sort of stuff. It's that work encouragement, but said in a very old, haughty way.
Yeah, I know. I felt like Maggie was very underused. Like so, like I
Yeah.
guess she was basically just getting like wanted Vera and who was it to work together? Simon, right?
Yeah, so I think I wrote that name down. Sorry, was it Simon Carr? Yeah, Simon Carr, who is
And where'd Simon come from? Was he on before, or
so
this
as
his
far as
first appearance?
I'm pretty sure he would was on in some of the missing episodes, but I'm not sure exactly
Okay.
where. Because they do a lot of
Cool.
the stuff that they do reference in terms of the character histories has actually happened in the show. It's sort of like an establishment, like
Right.
establishing sort of, I guess, where they are, sort of, because the movie is kind of its own thing. Excuse me. Um, as we hear Vera and Maggie joke and stuff like that, he is someone that they've competed over, but neither managed to snag. And he's coming on as their new was it the new PR man for the boutique, or the I think it's no, yeah, the boutique that Maggie wants to make open, wasn't it?
I I guess.
Yeah.
But they were
Oh
supposed.
no,
They were
yeah. Oh
so
no, she asked him
so
for
we were
dresses. It was a fashion house. She wants to start like a fashion line thing. That's right.
so
Because she was
so
talking about
Vera.
getting.
Yeah, so Vera has two love interests in this one, and it's Simon and Nick, who is a
Yeah,
politician of some sort. He's like running for something.
he's slated to be the next prime minister, which is like our big office.
Okay.
Yeah. So she meets him, and we have that hilarious scene because Don comes to see her as well to see how she is and all that sort of stuff. And we have that scene where Claire takes them out, and you've got Nick and Vera kind of doing their own thing while Claire is just rattling off all the social gossip and nonsense, and just prattling on and on and on, like
Yeah.
um you know, you can't, unless you're in some designer's pocket or like or a journalist, you're not even mentioned in the society page, just stuff like that. And Donna's just sitting there like, oh, and then she's like, oh, and clearly drunk when they get back, pouring her brandy. She's like, at least, we can always go out and have civilized conversations. Oh, how's your brandy, Donald? Like,
I still
and
miss Bev. I miss Bev in this for sure. So.
Yeah, yeah. Her attitude definitely would have been missed. Although a reference to the first actor who played her, was made when Norma came out as Lady Godiva. Alf mentioned, "Oh, it's Abigail," and the actor who played her.
uh,
Yeah, it's like a little movie in movie reference sort of thing. Yeah. But anyways, Vera ends up meeting Nick, and they hit it off. And he ends up bringing her back, and she basically sort of says, "I really like you. I love the time we spent the last couple of days," because she does say days, as
yeah.
as far as time going in this movie. Um, and but he wants more, and she doesn't tell him why, but she can't. And obviously, Vera
Yeah.
knows why. And I think that's kind of where Simon comes in as far as all that goes. So I think
Right.
that was kind of more of like, because she already cared about him, and and he obviously was like attracted to her, and they hit it off while they're working together, and stuff happens, or in his case, doesn't happen. And
Yeah, he
yeah,
can't. So yeah, they hung out or whatever, and then like they kiss and it's all cute, and then they're like making out, and like okay, we know where it's going, and then they're like in bed, and it looks like he's trying to get it in her, and he can't seem to get it up.
yeah. And then it's like the next morning, and he's sitting there begrudgingly with a cigarette, like super pissed at himself. So like, yeah, she doesn't
Yeah, so
judge him. I
I
actually thought
didn't
what she
know.
said was really sweet in that scene, though.
It was. I didn't know where this was going either. Like I was like, so is he supposed to be gay or was he just drunk and couldn't get it up? I don't know.
Well, as he says, like this was his first sexual experience with a man or a woman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and because
And
he
he's
had
like
said
he
that.
looks like he's 30. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh whatever.
yeah, the good old closet days, man. Like when you didn't say shit.
Sorry.
Like,
Right.
but yeah, no, it's actually really sweet. I thought that scene was quite well done, considering how sex had been sort of joked about as far as other characters' relationships were going, and then of course the shocking opening scene and stuff like that. It was sweet. She didn't judge him, and he's like, oh, like talking about like how she feels. He wants to and all that, and she's like, no, it doesn't change anything about how I feel about you. You're my friend.
Yeah.
It's okay. And it was really sweet.
And I guess she decides so I guess she decides to see Nick again. I forget how that
No,
point of it.
she's kind of like pushing away his advance. Oh, so Maggie kind of talks her into seeing him again. Oh wait, no, actually, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So Don, Simon, and Vera all go out together, and Maggie gets jealous because they're all hanging out together and she's not. And so oops, just knocked my phone. But she gets drunk, and she's pretty bloody awful to Simon, and Simon thinks that basically he's been outed by Vera, which wasn't the
Yeah,
case.
she
Maggie's
says
a
a
bitch.
couple what she called them a poofta and
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
some
Once,
she had
yeah.
some other gay slurs, closet
Um,
case type thing.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I was like, why are you wasting all your charms, Vera? Something about Vera wasting her charms because she's in love with fairies, or she believes in fairies and stuff. It was
Yeah,
pretty friggin' awful. Calls him like a dressed up poofter or something like that. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
yeah,
Like, it was
yeah.
awful. And he backhands her in the face, which is it
Yeah,
was.
that
I
was
mean,
funny.
granted, it was a very like it was funny, but it's very like I say backhanded. It's not like a. It was very like classic soapy backhand. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
like she actually. I want to say she sold the drama of that slap so well. Like, she's just like, and like, yeah, no, it was great. Yeah. Anyways, he gets mad, and that's where Don and Simon sort of become close because Don goes to sort of uh, tell Simon about what happened. It wasn't Vera's fault. We'll get to that in a minute. We go to Vera, who is over at Claire's, apparently invited over for a swim because we're all grown people and we still do that. Um, yeah, like come over to my house. Let's go for a swim. I suppose it's free. I mean, I would still do that. Like,
Oh, for
it just
sure.
seems, yeah, like it just seems so casual a reason for them to have this setup though. Like, it wasn't.
Right.
But anyways, she gets annoyed because Maggie walks over and she's like, well, if I knew you were going to be here, I wouldn't have come over, essentially. And Maggie's like, no, please let me apologize. I've already written an apology note for Thingo, for Simon, and I do sort of regret what I said. I was drunk, lonely, and jealous, essentially. And
Yeah.
sort of Vera kind of just Maggie type vibe and jumps in. And all at that same time, Claire's also re-invited Nick over and he just swoops in and starts talking with her. And she's just sort of like, I haven't seen you for a bit. And then it
Yeah.
starts again. And they sort of get closer. She's still nervous about her past and she goes over her past as far as like being involved with the mafia, which I imagine would have been related to a lot of the gang storylines that were seemingly popping up towards that episode 450 and like the last one that we did. Just
And
stuff
she
like
was a
that.
prostitute. She was a
Yeah,
prostitute at one
yeah,
point.
and all that. Like her history isn't great, and he's a politician.
Sure.
Politics is vicious. Yada yada yada.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's going through all those sort of questions and stuff like that. But she ends up, I think he ends up inviting her out to to meet his son because they decide to sort of give it a go. She bites the bullet. He convinces her. And it's like, okay, meet my family. And lo and behold, the twist and what,
Mhm.
yeah, the one dude that we see the face of in terms of the assault at the beginning of the film happens to be Nick's
See his
young
son.
son.
Yeah. I really didn't know where it was going. I'm like, is she gonna end up pregnant with this? Like I didn't
Mm,
know. And that was a good one. That was a nice little twist. I was
yeah,
like,
they sort of
okay, that's where it's going. All right.
Tony, Mr.
Tony, yep.
Yeah, yeah, with that, the haircut. But anyways, yeah, and it's sort of like, yeah, it sort of is a weird thing. So she meets him, and then the scene immediately transitions to Maggie's shock value of like, oh my god, what? It's that guy. It's Nick's son. Oh my god, and it sort of that plays out, and we see Vera going like, I don't know what the hell to do, essentially.
And Maggie's like, did you think that he knew it was you? And she's like, oh, he knew it was me. And like we had dinner, and like she mentioned, and he was all polite, and everything went
Mm.
well, but she
He
just
knew it was
knew
me.
that he knew. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually want to say like Elaine Lee through the scenes where as she's like helping set up, I think she's doing some of the the gowns and everything for the Ruby anniversary, and she's at this point she's been kind of like keeping Nick at a distance and saying she doesn't actually want anything serious, but hasn't really told him why, and he's like, what the hell,
Yeah.
basically. He's not angry, he just doesn't understand. He understands about her past because she does tell him that, and that's actually how they sort of keep it going for a while there, is like she confesses and he's like, no, we'll deal with it when it happens. So he knows about the past, he doesn't really understand what's going on, so she's keeping him at a distance. And then Tony, rather than being in a big leather jacket this time and a weird helmet with his mates, comes up in like the proper like politician son suit.
Right.
And that scene, I didn't really think about it when I first watched it, but this time, I was watching it. Elaine Lee just owns that scene. Like, it's so tense. It's so tense.
This is the
And
one when he came in and threatened her, right? That you're
yeah,
talking
like he's
about?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, she's immediately tense, and then like he goes to like actually like lean into her to sort of do something, and she's like, "Come in," really quickly, and you just the flinching and like her body language. I was like, wow, that's like, and it still has that melodrama of the old days as well. Yet I'm still sitting there being like, oh,
And this is where you're thankful for the character of Dory,
yeah,
who actually did save her life, essentially.
yeah, 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 and yeah, it was a very well, it it was well done, and it's sort of deflated by Dory's sort of comedic timing and stuff like that, and then he sort of waltzes out, and you're just like, oh wow, like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm still just thinking about reflecting on it now because I was only watching it just before, and yeah, no, she just completely owns
But
that
ag-
scene, and it's
but again, why don't anybody ever tell like with it's almost like they use that as a device in this. Like they don't tell people. Like I would be like, oh my god, that dude was about to kill me. Like you know what I mean? Like and but instead they're just like, oh, thank God he's gone. Like what do you think he's just gonna go away? I'm pretty sure he's gonna try again. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. But
So
having said that, I
basically
mean,
he
she,
wanted to he wanted to kill her because she can, she knows that he did that.
yeah,
And
he can say
so yeah, I
something,
guess
and he even mentions his dad. He's like, "You could ruin my life. You could ruin my dad's career." Like his dad's career would necessarily be ruined unless he tried to cover it up or something. But the
all right.
rationalizations of a lunatic. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, no. So that's sort of like quite like left open, sort of a little bit for a little bit there, where she's sort of like, "What do I do? He's threatening me," sort of thing.
So then, and then they end up at the anniversary party. So that's where like the anniversary party is like the ultimate thing that brings everybody together through the movie. So it's like everybody has their own storylines, and you hear about the party nonstop with everybody. Like you said, Vera was doing the dresses. Like everybody's doing
Mm.
something for the anniversary party, which is kind of funny because like you see like everybody's always annoyed by Dory in like the past, but I guess they kind of treat her like she's like that crazy aunt that you have that you just deal with all the time. So they're just like, I don't
Yeah,
know. That's
there was
funny.
that lovely little speech with the crowd where she's like just thanking everybody, like she was actually really grateful. Yeah, like there's a lot of those like really like heartwarming moments in the series as well. And then you just have these insane shock value moments that come from like 70s exploitation horror films. Like that's what I felt like I was watching when this movie started. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah,
what the
that's what I
fuck?
felt like. I know.
Yeah. But either
But
way, what is it? I
so
think
go on.
Vera gets,
Everybody's at the party
yep.
and I think she decided, did she go with Nick? I forget.
No, she didn't. I think she went with Don. No, 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 no. I think she just went because she's there
She
with
just went.
everybody. Yeah, and
Okay.
she's got the she gets a note telling her to meet was it, I think she thinks it's Nick is outside
Okay.
and wants to speak with her. And obviously she goes outside, yada yada yada. It's Tony in a car, and he sort of goes to run her down, and what's his face? Simon? Yeah.
Don. I thought Don saved her, no?
No, it was Simon. Simon
That was
pushes her.
Simon?
He gets hit, and then when he comes back around, Don grabs her out of the way again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then that because
Yeah, it kind of
uh,
happened fast, so I was like I didn't. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
so and then he essentially just blows up. His car blows
yeah.
up.
He crashes the car into like a brick wall and blows up and dead. Um, and then
And then we
like
gotta then really like Don was in like every storyline I felt like, but he didn't do anything major except for with Simon. But it was only really like one scene or two scenes.
yeah,
So
I
it's kind
always
of
felt like
funny.
I always felt like that was probably some of the stuff that they probably wanted to do maybe with him and Bruce in the early days, like to have these,
Right.
because the scene where he's with Simon and Simon's happy, like he like they've slept together and Simon's like bouncy and in a good mood, like, it's like, I'm not a freak, like I know what I am, like that sort of
What was
vibe.
it? Well, it was kind of funny when like was it where were they? Did he come home and get a shower? I forget where he came out of, John. And then like Simon was just naked in his apartment. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. I think that was after Flo interrupts and he comes out in the robe and Flo's like, "Oh my god," or whatever about the wedding certificate or something. Yeah, it was something like that, anyways. But yeah,
Yeah, that was funny.
no, Don did sort of show up in a little bit in everybody's, but yeah, he does that.
And then so that pretty much ends that storyline. And then they show them. Well, actually, no, it doesn't, because that they were at like the end in like some parade or something. So I guess like
Okay,
he
so
became prime minister.
yeah, so it just did you remember like the write up that it has there?
No.
It goes, "Oh, what the
What's it
hell?
say?
How about a happy ending?" And they just show the on like on like the big drive after he's won his election, and Vera's there being like, "Ah!" and he's like, "I'm the minister," and it's like, and it flips over to the cast members who are waving to her in the crowd, and then you hear Dory was just like, "I always said that Vera Collins wouldn't amount to much."
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I
And
pretty much
did
see that
so
as more of a joke and like a lighter ending just to sort of tie it off because they were running out of time essentially. Because if you think about it, it's just too tied up. Like it's just
so is Nick not in the movie? Or, I mean, in the show after the fact?
no, no.
Okay, I got you.
So
So then
yeah, I would
we're supposed to just see like, okay, Vera is back
divorce.
to divorce. Okay.
I would presume, like, come on, like when you think about it, it's the mid 70s with her sort of history. I doubt that it wouldn't have been an issue in politics when she was married with her. I'm just saying. And soapies work fast. Something could have happened in like a month.
Yeah.
You know, this whole movie is probably about around that long in length, like in time as so. You know, like Sonia moved
Yeah.
in and then she's out again by the end of the month. Like,
So we'll cover Aldo and Roma because that should be pretty quick. So Aldo and
yeah,
Roma were together in like the beginning or whatever, and
hmm
like he lights his bed on fire by accident.
yeah, he loses his
He goes
cufflinks.
under the what's it? I don't even know what did he was looking for something under the bed and
His
used a
cufflinks.
match. He was using a match and it lit his bed on fire, which had $2,000 in
Yeah.
it.
And Roma even mentioned earlier, she's like, and she's like, and you want me to trust you with our money and paying it in cash. You're not using banks, Aldo,
Yeah,
like, and then he just,
he's
and then we
he's
find
playing.
out
Well,
that he's
he was
been,
playing the system. Yeah, like he doesn't want
mm,
to.
he was
Yeah,
pinching from the till.
right. Well, he
Because
doesn't have his restaurant yet, right?
no, no, he's,
And
oh wait, no, I don't think so, no. Because he
and
still
his
has the
daughter.
delicatessen. So I think the delicatessen, he still sort of serves food there with people. Like it's sort of like has takeaway food and stuff, but it's not like a
And
restaurant. It's still the store, the general store.
his his daughter never comes back, right? Or does she?
No, she does. She does make a reappearance, but at this
Oh, okay.
point, yeah, at this point, Rose is off in New Guinea with Julian.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, she ended up marrying Julian after the loss of her assault child, essentially. Yeah, like yeah.
And then our last storyline would be Sonia and Duncan.
Yep. Well,
So
I find that Sonia and Duncan and Jack and Diane were sort
Jack
of
and
all
Diana.
kind of in the one big story together.
Yeah. So how did Duncan meet Sonia? Did we go
So,
into that?
so Duncan, I'm pretty sure is just a character for the movie because Sonia doesn't come back after this. Um,
Oh,
so
that's weird.
I think it was just because she was an established character that the audience would have already remembered, and and she'd been written off. She had gone, she'd had a nervous breakdown and she'd been gone, and this is, I guess, like a way for them to tie it up, to give her sort of like, oh, because at the end of this one, she actually leaves like healthy and like happy.
It was a fun storyline too. I liked
I did, and I actually forgot about quite a few of the trippy scenes.
it. Yeah, right. So yeah, I
Yeah.
had no idea what was going on. This girl's having nightmares of devil masks and shit, and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, so Sonia comes back excuse me. Sonia comes back to number 96 with her husband Duncan. And she's moved in. I think she's back in the same flat. She said, no, it's not the same flat. She would have been lower. Beg your pardon, same building. I'm just notes in my
At the
head.
number
Anyway,
96 somewhere.
yeah. Oh no, it's just because they ran the chemist, and I'm like, oh, I think she's in the same flat. No, they're up on like the second floor or whatever this time. But anyway,
Right.
she's come back because that's where her breakdown started. That's where all the drama happened. That sort of like led her on this path. And she sort of says to Duncan that, like, he's also helped her because she hadn't been out long when they met. So she was already in a better place, but he helped her get in a better place, and she feels strong enough to kind of face things down, like come back to where it started, because it's not the same anymore,
Right.
Like, she's in a better place. She feels confident to sort of tackle that. And he's like, okay, then,
Did
that's
we
okay.
did we establish that she was rich or something? Because I didn't even remember that.
So I think because the Vansards, it's through Gordon, I'm pretty sure. It's through Gordon
Oh.
oh my God, I can't remember his dead wife's name, Sylvia.
Oh, okay.
Because I think because that was Gordon's original last name. And then he took hers, remember, because he took Sonia's while they were living in sin and unmarried and all that.
Right,
Um,
right.
but Gordon and Sylvia were from money, and I'm pretty sure that that's how Sonia essentially got her money.
Okay.
Yeah. So either way, she's sort of like coming back, and she's trying to just like live her life, more or less. Jack Sellers, who was unfortunately, he's in quite a bit of the show. We do see him in the episodes coming up, but unfortunately, we've only really had 450 to establish him. I thought the movie was quite good at establishing generally how his character is, where he's kind of, I mean, I know he's supposed to be funny and like jovial and friendly with all his come-ons and everything, but he has a lot to deal with. And then he ends up doing these like really kind of heroic things for a lot of the characters. And then you see these moments where he's just tender and not trying to like grab some poor chick's boobs, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So throughout it, I didn't know where this was going either. Because so I see like Sonia lost her wedding ring, and then I'm like,
mm,
and I think Jack and Diana were just there, and I'm like, so we're supposed to think that like Diana's a klepto? Like I didn't know what was up.
it was just, yeah, it was establishment. So I remember with her last breakdown when we were going, when I was, beg your pardon, catch my words. When she was written out of the show, and like her breakdown fully occurred, she had was doing similar things, like doing they called it like the poltergeist incident in like the descriptions when I was reading the summaries. So I presume she was like destroying, like wrecking people's rooms, trashing stuff, moving stuff around. So it was very reminiscent of the beginnings of that, I would presume, like at least to the audience, and it's something that Jack himself recognizes
Okay.
as she becomes more distressed about it, because it's not just things like misplacing her engagement ring, it's forgetting like a lunch with Diane and Jack, yada yada yada. It's like all these everyday things, like ordering this giant lampshade. That giant lampshade, who made that? But anyway, yeah, she was supposed to have gone shopping and ordered it. It was on their card. She didn't remember purchasing it. And Duncan is sort of just chipper about everything. And she's
Yeah.
like, "It's all right, honey. It's a what is it? Oh, a wife forgets the salt and pepper for in nothing." Like just the way he talks is very like blissful domesticity and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. Yeah.
But it
Um,
basically we find out that he's gaslighting her, and he's working with who's he working with?
so
Is he working with
Diane,
Diana or
he's working with Diane. Yeah. So Diane's sort
uh,
of like using Jack as an excuse to sort of be in the building, and she's living next door to Sonia and Duncan. And
right,
so she can't, you see, she goes on these trips throughout the movie where she's like on her job. Like, I think it's like the one's to Hong Kong, where she comes back with like, oh, this is like the necklace that Duncan wanted me to get for you. Like he, yada, yada, yada. And she brings back those masks. She gives one to Jack. She gives one to Duncan. You know what I mean? So like as
yeah,
these gifts for friends, like, and it's all very. I actually like the way that they did this, because it's so, there was no emphasis on it. They were just like,
right,
she seems to sort of like her and Jack's relationship is sort of weird. but like it's generally like, you know, she doesn't seem too suspicious or anything like that.
Right.
Um, but as we go on, we find out that not only has they've been drugging her. Duncan's been giving Sonia hallucinogenics to send her off her head, and they've been setting up these wild sort of situations to screw with her while she's hallucinating. So she wakes up after they wake her up essentially, and she walked out through, and the trippy like kaleidoscope cameras and all that sort of stuff like that for her vision. And we look over into the corner of I think it's the kitchen, and Duncan is wearing a mask, or we don't see Duncan straight away, but it's a man in a mask, whipping a very naked Diane tied to the other part of the wall with nine tails, and it's supposed to look like a torture setup. And then he like pulls off the mask. It's Duncan, and he like laughs in her face, and we see hear Sonia scream and like flip out essentially.
Yeah.
Like all
I
kinds
was
of really wild stuff.
Yeah, I was so confused. I'm like, is she dreaming? What's happening here?
No, it's really messed up what they did to her. It's like
Oh yeah, for
gaslighting.
sure.
I feel like it's more than gaslighting when you're doing stuff like that. It's more like setting
Yeah.
someone on fire. Like, you know,
Well, yeah, they want and they basically like try to talk her to jump out of the building, so she
yeah,
dies. So I
yeah,
guess they inherit. So inherits her money or whatever. I guess that she got from Gordon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really messed up. But either way, sort of Jack picks up on it through a series of I think what was it? It was a duty call or something like that about her. I would assume her flight or something like that. So she faked her flight essentially, and he sort of picked up on it. And he sort of noticed a couple of other things that were inconsistent, and he sort of ended up figuring it out. And we find in the scene where Duncan and Diane come through, and they try and sort of talk her into killing herself, like egging her on, like they wake her up while she's supposed to be under the influence and talk her to the ledge. We find that it's a setup that Jack's sort of done with Sonia to catch them out.
Yeah, it was a wild time.
But yeah, and so Duncan and it's like it was just a crazy, like a wild story, and it's sort of delivered in a wild way. Like like drugging her. I think I think they said they gave her just hallucinogenics, but they imply earlier that her therapies have she's got experience with like LSD therapies, like probably with her mental health issues and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there's this real tinge of all that 70s psychedelic vibe to it, while also being weirdly scary with the devil, like the big devil mask. And and then it like rips, what is it? It rips off and it's like a skeleton or something. I'm like,
Yeah, it's like a skeleton head.
yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Delivered with
telling you,
all
wait.
the beauty and grace of a very, very old movie.
Well, anyone that wants to know what the hell we're talking about, it is shown on YouTube right now. That's where I watched it, so you're able to see it. Um, Other things that stood out for me was when it was at Dory and what's her name?
Flo?
Her friend Flo.
Yeah.
When they were doing like the bowling thing, that the whole like stage fell over because they were both being crazy.
Yeah, walking over and like
Um,
you see them skid and you see the little bit of wood go clink or whatever, and then they just knock that woman off, and then
yeah,
the whole lot of them end up going over, and it's just so ridiculous. I love the
it
fact that she
was
also
so
broke her
silly.
bowl. She broke her bowl, and then
It
she's
broke her
just like,
ball.
ah, that should be a point. That should just be a point for me. And she's just like, oh my God, Dory, I didn't mean to do it. Fair go, fair go. You know, like,
Yeah.
oh God.
It
They had, hilarious.
really was. Um, but yeah, this movie was wild. I feel like I needed to watch it like 3 times to know what the hell was going on. If I had more time, I definitely would have. But I thought once would be enough for, for this.
Yeah, pretty wild
Um,
story. A lot of humor, and I think considering how it starts, it doesn't really surprise me. And I think like they only really had probably enough time to tell a few plots, and I guess Dory and Herb they're all up in everybody's business usually, so they kind of do work. It worked well to sort of center it largely around like especially the last big chunk of it, their anniversary lead up, you know.
So we'll end on what carries through, because you told me before, but I totally forget. So what carries through to the series? Is anything, or does it
Um, so
just this?
so I thought the movie would be great as far as signing off on like characters like Sonia, who we won't see again, seeing more detail in characters like Jack, who will reappear. Um, what was it? Establishing characters like Dudley, because he ends up being a love interest for Don as the series goes on. Um, Norma and Les, because they're great. I love Norma and Les. They're also just yeah, it was a lot of those sort of side characters are sort of good for establishing. I didn't remember there are two characters that will appear in the next episodes that haven't been introduced yet, and they do stay in it till wherever, like to the episode's end. But we'll get into them later. They are hilarious, and also like I love them. I love them. They're great.
So
Uh,
does Simon come on, or he doesn't
no,
come back even?
I
Wow,
don't. I think maybe a mention, but he doesn't. He doesn't come back. I'm fairly certain. At least not
interesting.
in the episodes that we'll be watching. But I can always check it out once. So once we get through the next, so there's the two chunks next would be the Pantyhose Strangler and the Aftermath of Murder. Both of them have it'll be 64 episodes in total, and then there's a gap to the bomb. So
Okay,
I guess I could always look up and see what happens during that gap and stuff like that.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll wait and see either way. But I'm fairly
All
certain
right,
Simon, he might get a mention, but I don't think so.
all right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up today, and we'll bring you some more number 96 in the next few weeks. Um, Thanks for joining us today on Queers and Soaps. Subscribe, like, and comment. If you watch this show or this movie, did you see the movie? Did you only watch the show?
Yeah.
Um, Tell us. Thanks for joining us, and have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Bye.